All right, I'm going to begin. So thank you all for coming back. I have the great pleasure to introduce my closest friend, Bo Meinet, and she also is a 6 to 12 trainer at IMI. So I'm very excited, and I spoke to Bo. How long do we know each other? And it's actually already for more than 30 years. We lived together and in the same neighborhood. She was living on number 9, I lived in number 8. We were not real neighbors, but still. And we always make fun of the fact that we think there must have been something in our drinking water that was Montessori related. So I have the pleasure to introduce Bo Meinet to you all. So Bo Meinet is an AMI food trainer with more than a decade of experience in the education of children and adults. She has been working as an elementary Montessori guide in both the United States and the Netherlands. In the academic year of 2022 and 23, she directed the first AMI 6 to 12 diploma course in Delft at the IMI. Bo worked in a Montessori environment before taking the AMI 6 to 12 training in Bergamo and continued to work in the classroom in San Mateo, California, as well as Casa Bilingual Montessori School in Pijnacker in the Netherlands. After several years, she decided to also take the AMI 3 to 6 diploma course in Boston, USA. Although she enjoyed the work with children very much, she went back to Bergamo, Italy, to do the training for trainers under the guidance of Baiba Grazzini for 2 academic years. She went back to teaching as she completed the seminars and requirements to become an AMI 6 to 12 trainer. In January 2022, she gave her first AMI 6 to 12 orientation course at the International Montessori Institute in Delft, followed by the first AMI 6 to 12 diploma course ever held in the Netherlands at the IMI in the academic year of 2022. So at the moment, she's the director of training for the first AMI 6 to 12 diploma course in Mwanza, Tanzania, where close to 40 students are participating. Besides her work, she spends time with her family and rides a beautiful white big horse on the beach. Give her a warm applause, Bo Meinet.
Thank you, Anne, for this beautiful introduction. Take this down a little bit. Okay, so my topic for today is the ecology of education, or to be more precise, the ecology of cosmic education. When it comes to the topic of cosmic education, I've always been inspired by Camillo and Baiba Grazzini, who have been legends in the work of the 6 to 12 training courses. And together they have written several articles which are very valuable for the 6 to 12 approach. So I want to tribute my talk to them, to Baiba and Camillo, and then especially Baiba Grazzini, because she guided me in the process of becoming an AMI trainer. So ecology then as a topic, oh, it's not moving. Here we go. So the topic then, the ecology of cosmic education. When it comes to ecology, I guess you all know what it stands for. Where should I point? Here. Eco comes from oikos, the ancient Greek word oikos, for house or living environment, and logi is the study of. So literally this is saying the study of living organisms in their natural habitat or in their environment. Now, when it comes to cosmic education, this term is very often misunderstood and in different ways interpreted, and this is the term I would like to zoom in on today. Sometimes it's thought that when history, geography, and biology combined are brought to the children in an interrelated way, that is what is meant by cosmic education. But that's not all. Sometimes it's thought that the whole Montessori approach to education is what is cosmic education, and it can be applied at any age. Where Dr. Montessori used this term exclusively for the second plane child, and I'll come to that later in my talk. So I'd like to zoom in on that. When we see Dr. Montessori's work on cosmic education, we see that she writes and talks a lot about ecology. She gives many ecological examples, and she zooms in on the water cycle, for example. It's so spread out that it's hard to get concise what she means with cosmic education. So when we see her work, it shows a cosmic vision, cosmic work, cosmic plan, cosmic agents, and cosmic education. So this word cosmic is used a lot of the time. We can see it in several places, and it implies something grand, the universe, something interrelated. But today I would like to, with you, go into all these terms and how these terms relate to cosmic education. I don't know where to point. Up there. Here we go. No, this is too far. Here we go. Okay. If we want to understand ourselves, who we are in the present day, then we need to understand something about our environment. We need to understand the world we live in and how it came to the point where we are today. The Earth has changed so much over time, and only knowing something about our beautiful planet Earth will help us to understand life of all kinds, including ourselves, and where we are in the present day. So it can only be when we understand our environment in its entirety, so the Earth within the universe, that we can start to understand something about ourselves. The sun, the land, the water, the air. Dr. Montessori refers to them as, no, forward. This is back. Yes, here we go. Cosmic agents. They, the sun, the land, the water, the air, they're non-living cosmic agents, and together they support all living organisms. Cosmic agents is a term that you will hear more in my talk because they unconsciously contribute to something that we refer to as the greater whole. Okay, wait. Dr. Montessori herself writes, the stars, earth, stones, life of all kinds, form a whole in relation with each other. And so close is this relation that we cannot understand a stone without some understanding of the great sun. No matter what we touch, an atom or a cell, we cannot explain it without knowledge of the wide universe. She writes this in To Educate the Human Potential. Oh, wait. Back, here we go. When we observe our environment, there are patterns to be found in living but also in non-living things. When we look at water, for example, we can see that water streams sideways and downwards, but never upwards, not up the hill. It will expand into vapor when it gets hot, and it will crunch into ice when it gets cold. But water moves according to the laws it's been given, the laws of nature. It doesn't have a shape of its own. It will fill every hollow, every crevice on its path. And when we study these kinds of patterns, we start to understand the world. Now, before I got asked to talk about this topic, I already read a lot about cosmic education, but now it was another chance for me to dive into what Dr. Montessori has to say about cosmic education. And I read many of her papers with the title Cosmic Education, where she goes into the cycle of chalk, or the cycle of water, or the cycle of other substances. She goes into all these kinds of areas, bees pollinating flowers, or corals purifying the water, cows grazing the grass, and the earthworm aerating the soil. When you look through her work, you can find so many examples of ecology. And therefore, I chose 3 different examples to illustrate this cosmic work, this cosmic idea that she also tried to illustrate with examples. And I chose 3 different examples, not the bee or the earthworm, but 3 other ones with which I hope to arouse in you interest and spark in you that interest. So the first creature I'd like to that I'd like to introduce is Prochlorococcus. This small, very small, tiny marine cyanobacteria is considered as one of the most abundant photosynthetic organisms on the planet. Its ancestors have changed the Earth in ways that it's now possible for us to live. And hidden in its genes might be a way to inspire us to get less dependent on fossil fuel. But what is maybe most interesting here is that there are more than 3 billion of them, that is 3 quintillion, for the ones who care, a 3 with 18 zeros, of them on the planet, and we have only discovered them about 4 decades ago. So how could we have been oblivious to this creature for so long? Well, they were discovered by scientists out at the open ocean, among whom was Penny Chisholm, and they were actually studying phytoplankton. And as they were studying these creatures, they were looking at it with a special laser, looking at a very fine tube, and they saw these little dots that they first thought of as noise, but they understood that there were, over time, that there were patterns in this scientific noise, and that this tiny, tiny creature with the size of 1/100th of a human hair, so tiny, and these had photosynthetic ability. And so, where was I? So they discovered that this photosynthetic creature was also covering all of the oceans, the colder and warmer oceans, and has spread out over the full globe. Now, over 4 decades of scientific research, Penny Chisholm gave a TED Talk about Prochlorococcus, admiring her wonderful little creatures in 2018, and she describes how important they are for global ecology and how they became so abundant all over the world. Now, one of its characteristics is that it has adapted to several layers in the water, so that the Prochlorococcus that is closest to the surface of the water is able to photosynthesize on the light of the sun. But there are also kinds that live in the deeper layers of the water, and those are the most efficient photosynthesizing animals, or creatures, not animals, in the world. Now, together, these animals, there you go, here, they weigh more than the human population, so they're quite numerous, and they photosynthesize as much as all the crops on land. So I grew up with the idea that oxygen comes from land plants, and that by the Amazon, as one of our great forests, the Amazon is like the lungs of the earth. But now we have to think about half of the oxygen coming from the land and half of the oxygen coming from the surface of the water, which is all produced by Prochlorococcus. So it's like 2 lungs, one is the water, one is the land. Prochlorococcus plays a very important role in marine ecosystems, of course also for the production of oxygen, but also because they are a food source for many other in the marine life living animals, as you can imagine. So that brings me to another organism, which is the copepod. Now, copepods have been misidentified for many years. They were first known as zoophytes, zoo from animal and phytes from plants, literally animal plants. They were also identified as insects and even as fish lice, like lice we can have on animals, because they were attached to it. But over time, they got their name, copepod, which comes from the ancient Greek word, or for pedal, or pedal, and pods for feet. So you can think of them as pedal feet, and these tiny creatures were living in the oceans. Now, they are part of the crustaceans, and just to refresh your memory, for whom is not really into the animal kingdom. The invertebrates are divided into different phyla. One of the phyla is the arthropods, in het Nederlands geleedpotige. And the arthropods are divided then into several subphyla: insects, arachnids, millipedes, and crustaceans. So let's see where the crustaceans are. Here. Copepods belong to the lobsters more than to the insects, but they do belong to the arthropods. Okay, so they're very, very tiny creatures. They're only 1 to 2 millimeters in size, and there are very, very many of them on the planet, and there are scientists who say these creatures have the largest biomass in the world, and they're very important for the global ecology as well as for the carbon cycle. Now, to explain that a little bit, here I have a picture. Copepods feed at the surface of the water at night, and they try to hide from predators during the day, so they go to deeper sides of the water, taking with them the carbon dioxide, and they are releasing carbon dioxide at the bottom of the sea levels, bringing this carbon dioxide down. As they do this, 2 billion tons of carbon is brought down to the bottom of the sea on a yearly basis, which is equal to 1/3 of human carbon emission. Now, I can hear you think, these creatures are the answer to our carbon problems. We just need more of them. Well, there's one little side note here, because there are 14,000 species of copepods, from which about half is parasitic. Now, copepods themselves are also subject to parasites, so they bring diseases to marine creatures as well. So they don't only have a good and positive effect, they also have a negative effect on other living beings. So who is making sure, oh, here we go, too fast, back. Who is making sure that there are not too many of these copepods around? Seahorses is one of its natural predators. Now, I don't know how much you know about seahorses, but aren't they like they escaped from a Harry Potter book? It's almost unreal. They are vertebrates. You might think invertebrates, but they are vertebrates, just like fish. They belong to the fish. And they're very famous because it's the male that gets pregnant and the male that gives birth. And there's so much more to know about seahorses, but one other thing that I'd like to point out is how fast do you think these creatures can swim? I can tell you they're not among the best of swimmers. They go about 1.5 meters per hour. So it's really not fast. So how do these creatures then catch copepods, for which I can tell you copepods are very good swimmers. They can swim about 90 meters per hour. Being so tiny, that would relate to a human being swimming at 81 kilometers per hour. That's really fast. So copepods are good swimmers, seahorses are not. How do they catch these tiny creatures that can even jump forward if they want to, if they sense danger? Now, scientists have researched that the shape of the head of the seahorse is one of its weapons, because it has this shape, and it can tilt its head in a way that it's trying not to disturb the water so that the little copepod does not see it coming, literally, and then it sucks it in. Now I have a little visual of that. Here we go. Now, seahorses seem like animals that are only living in tropical zones. It's actually, they are a lot closer than you might think. Let's go to the next one. There are 2 kinds of seahorses that live in the Netherlands, in the Ooster- and Westerschelde. So they're a lot closer than you expected, probably expected. Well, Prochlorococcus, copepods, and seahorses are just 3 examples of extraordinary creatures. Let's go to the next. That contributes to global ecosystems. They play a part in the relation to a greater whole. They have their task to do. They are examples of living cosmic agents. So I just talked about non-living cosmic agents, the sun, the land, the air, the water, and now we have plants and animals also being cosmic agents, and they form the conditions, together they have the conditions for life. Now, plants and animals, oh, too fast, go back. Plants and animals are part of our biosphere, the living sphere around here. So you could say we have the atmosphere, the layer of air, the hydrosphere, the layer of water, the lithosphere, the layer of land, of stone, and the biosphere integrated in these spheres is the layer of life, integrated in it all. Now, as last component, human beings came, and Dr. Montessori illustrates that with the coming of human beings, another sphere was added, a psychosphere, as she calls it. And this is because human beings brought another level of intelligence, another way of thinking. Human beings brought a power of the mind that became superior to nature. They have a power to go beyond the sensorial powers bestowed on him by nature, because we can see through a telescope and a microscope, and we have all this accumulated knowledge of chemistry, biology, geography, history, and math that we now can see further back in time than we ever thought. Dr. Montessori writes this: "So appears the greatness of man, a creative agent and transformer above all animals or plants, explorer of the whole world and the universe outside it, able even to go back in time and explore what has long ceased to be." So, Montessori developed a very lofty cosmic vision in which the Earth has a place in a universe, and all the elements play part in this cosmic vision. Everything part of one big ecosystem, we could say. It's truly a cosmic vision because she doesn't only zoom in on the Earth itself, but the Earth within the universe, beyond, so the environment the Earth finds itself in. The vision, the cosmic vision Montessori talks about, is something that we share with the whole Montessori community, with everyone at every age. The cosmic vision is something we can tell and spread to everyone. It gives us direction in our work. Although children at different stages of life need different things, we can still always offer this idea of being in one big ecosystem. Now, Dr. Montessori illustrated the cosmic agents and her cosmic vision with this chart of interdependence. So at the top you see the sun, below the land, the mountains, below that the water, then on the right the plants, on the left the animals, and then that black dot in the middle is indicating humanity, which is showing all human groups from all continents, no matter what language we speak or where we come from, all of humanity is represented by this black dot, and all play a part in a greater whole. So the arrows are now illustrating dependence. So we, human beings, are dependent on the plants, on the animals, on the water, on the land, on the air, and on the sun. These are the cosmic agents. This is the chart that shows these cosmic agents and how they are dependent on each other. Dr. Montessori writes, "When we begin to understand the working of this universe, then everything assumes a meaning. We begin to see into the how and why of things. Each being has a certain task to do, a rule to obey. Evolution therefore takes place along these set lines." This is in creative development in the child. Now, let's go from a cosmic vision to what Montessori calls cosmic education. Dr. Montessori describes 4 planes of development, as you all know, and each plane has certain very outspoken characteristics. Although her work started with a lot about the 0 to 6, or the first plane of development. In her later work, her view on the 6 to 12-year-old child crystallizes, and she speaks about very certain characteristics and sensitivities, because the child is no longer guided by the sensitive periods that the child was guided by up until the age of 6. The child starts to ask very different kinds of questions, shows very different kinds of behavior, and is in need of a very different environment and a different approach. So when Dr. Montessori realized that these children between 6 and 12 are so different, she also thought about how she can change, or how we can change the approach to these children so that we can give them what they need. Children really like to see and explore, and they ask how and why. Now, when we look around in our environment, there are many things that we could see with our eyes or with our own senses that can tell us about how and why. But there are so many things that you cannot really explain. Here we go. Oh, too fast. That you cannot really explain with your own eyes. You have to use your mind's eye to really understand what is going on. Think about photosynthesis, for example. This is a process that we can see, the leaf as a food factory, where it's producing, it has the ability to take molecules apart, and with energy of the water and the sun, it can produce other substances, sugars, and we can only see this if we have this visual image in our mind. Where should I point with this thing? There, back there. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. There. Okay, oh, too fast. Here we go. Okay, so this is something that the children hopefully would start to visualize as zooming into the leaf as a little food factory, being able to produce and create molecules, having this magical force. Now, Dr. Montessori writes in To Educate the Human Potential, "It is along this path of higher realities, which can be grasped by imagination, that the child is led between the ages of 6 and 12. Imaginative vision is quite different from mere perception of an object, for it has no limits. Not only can imagination travel through infinite time and infinite space, but also through infinite time, we can go backwards through epochs and have the vision of the earth as it was, with the creatures that inhabited it." So let's think about the sensitivities of the second plane child. The child has a hunger for knowledge, and it wants to know how and why, how things function. There is such a psychological growth because the child is not focused so much more on the bodily growth of changing from a baby to a 6-year-old. There is now this intense hunger for understanding how and why and how things function. So each story that we tell has the intention to inspire and awaken in the child interest and questions. Each story reveals a kind of structure, an organization, laws of nature, the patterns to be found, the evolution of an invention, or the history of the work of man, humanity as a whole. No. An inner change has taken place, but nature is quite logical in arousing now in the child not only a hunger for knowledge and understanding, but a claim to mental independence, a desire to distinguish good from evil by his own powers, and to resent limitation by arbitrary authority. In the field of morality, the child now stands in need of his own inner light. I'd like to zoom in on that last part, where the child now has a claim for mental independence and wants to zoom in on this, here we go, this inner light. It has to do, oh, here we go. It has to do with a moral development, a development of a moral compass. Now, as in the 0 to 6, we could say, help me to think for myself. No, sorry, help me to do it by myself. For the 6 to 12, we could say, help me to think for myself. Thinking has to do with knowledge, with understanding, but it also has to do with judgment. It has to do with understanding what is good and what is bad, how to act and react, what to say, what not to say in different situations. So behavior is a choice, and to learn how to act and react, a child observes other children and other human beings around him to see that and to always measure his response. He's very interested in these social relationships, and a lot of practice is needed here in this social development, but also in the development of this moral compass. Now, children in this age very often ask something about fair, or they will say this and that is not fair, and that is because they are developing that moral ability to judge the situation, to understand if they have that inner voice and if that inner voice is correct or not. Okay. Cosmic education is based on the psychological needs. The secret lies in awakening of interest and directing the use of imagination to understand the world, because imagination can be used to escape from reality, and imagination can be used to understand reality. So there's two ways of using or not using imagination. And we would like to offer the child the universe and help him guide his imagination to understand the world that we live in today. Dr. Montessori not only describes a cosmic vision, a cosmic vision, she even goes as far as a cosmic plan. It goes further than seeing only the interrelatedness of animals and plants and water and the air and how that all works together. She goes as far as to say that everything that exists, simply by being here and by following the laws of nature, is contributing to something that lies in the future. Creatures create an environment that will make the world a better place for other creatures still to come. Now, it's not a coincidence of cause and effect, but a force that is directing everything with an aim that lies in the future, a cosmic plan in which each cosmic agent plays a crucial role. Now, I'd like you to take a moment to zoom in on the universe, and you can close your eyes, and you can move around through endless space. Use your imagination to fly through space. Space is dark and cold. Who can imagine that darkness and that coldness? When we think of dark, we think of night. But our nights would be like brilliant sunshine in comparison to that darkness. When we think of cold, we think of ice. But ice would be positively hot if you compare it to the coldness of space. In space, you will find many, many stars. There are so many stars. It's like little drops of water in an ocean of space. Zoom in on one of these stars. This is our sun. Around the sun, you will see many different planets twirling around, as if they are held by a string. But instead of falling, everything moves in such a way that they can never meet. One of these planets that is turning around the sun is our planet Earth, that tiny blue planet with its atmosphere and the water. It's reflecting so beautifully, and the Earth is at a perfect distance from the sun to not be too warm or not be too cold. It's because the Earth is at this certain distance that it catches some of the sun's warmth and light, and it turns around fast enough to warm up and slow enough to warm up and cool down during the night. If the Earth were in a static relationship with the sun and was just standing still, one side would get very hot, the other side would get very cold, and life would not have happened. But because the Earth is turning around itself and around the sun, we have day and night, and it's warming up and cooling down just enough for the perfect circumstances. If the Earth were at a further distance or a closer distance, life would not have happened. If Earth would not be turning around itself, life would not have happened. If the Earth would not have had an atmosphere, life would not be here. If the Earth did not have water in the exact composition that we have now here, life would not be here. If any of these factors would have been different, we would not have existed. So take into your heart how special it is that life is here today and that we are here today. You can open your eyes if you want. Some people are like dozing off. No, here, sorry. Next. Life came on Earth. Plants, animals in the ocean, plants covering the land, and animals following the plants onto the land, changing the environment. The atmosphere was not always like this. The plants have not always been like this, and the animals have not always been like this. Everything evolved and changed over time. And how could we have existed only in this particular time? It is as if the Earth was prepared for human beings to come. So Dr. Montessori writes, in What You Should Know About Your Child, there is a plan to which the whole universe is subject. All things, animate and inanimate, so living and non-living, are subordinate to that plan. It seems as if the Earth was prepared for the arrival of human beings who came without apparent external benefits, but with the incredible gift to overcome great barriers of nature. Rapid changes came when human beings came because they have spread to all continents and to all different kinds of climates. Think about this. Cows that eat grass in France, eat grass in Australia, eat grass in America, but human beings can adapt to any situation. They can eat what nature has to offer. In one zone, it would be raw fish and meat. In another zone, it would be tropical fruits. We have this ability to adapt to any kind of climate. And a bird building a nest will build a nest here or there or everywhere in the same or similar way. But human beings have adapted in such a way that we build houses of different kinds depending on what nature has to offer us. We have spread to all the continents and we have adapted to all the environments. And for so many years, thousands and thousands and thousands of years that human beings have inhabited our Earth, they've only communicated through spoken language. All the knowledge was transmitted from father or mother to a child, and everything they knew had to be told, shown, or passed on, literally, until there came written language. Dr. Montessori writes, all the things we have are made by someone who we cannot thank, even if we want to. So we depend on supra-nature, above nature, in an absolute fashion. All we have and all we use comes to us through the efforts and fatigue of many hundreds of people whom we do not know. All men are continuously working for others. We must raise our consciousness and recognize that we live because other human beings allow us to live. This idea must be made clear to the child, this phenomenon of unity among man. Because it's easy for us to say that we depend on nature, on the air, on the water, on the plants and the animals. But we, human beings, depend on each other just as much. Through specialization, human beings became super interdependent. We are so dependent on each other, we cannot do without each other. We are depending on others for our survival. Sometimes it seems as if we are just here to enjoy ourselves, as if the world is our stage to walk on. But is that so? Dr. Montessori indicates how bees pollinate flowers unconsciously, how corals filter the water unconsciously, how the earthworm aerates the soil unconsciously. So is there possibly something that human beings are unconsciously contributing as a cosmic agent? She makes a very, Dr. Montessori, she makes a very clear distinction between the work of the child and the work of the adult. The child is developing himself, is constructing the adult he is to become, and the adult is working on the environment, changing the environment. That's why she calls human beings a creative agent. We are creating our environment. The greatest work is always done by the child, creating the adult of the future. And if we compare the baby, the newborn child, with a 3-year-old, there is no work that compares with that kind of work. Within those 3 years, the child has changed from a very tiny human being to a walking on 2 legs and speaking in full sentences human being. So therefore, taken in all the human characteristics. There is nothing that compares to that kind of work. But we human beings, we construct our environment, and it is definitely necessary that we start finding balance with nature. Not by exhausting and taking from one side, but also by becoming conscious of what we can pay back. There is almost no nature that is not touched or modified by human hands. And Dr. Montessori writes in her own words the following quote, "But while carrying out this long task where man," she means human beings, "acts as the cosmic agent who refines and perfects the creations of nature, humanity remained, as did all the other animals, unconscious of having a cosmic task in creation." Dr. Montessori stressed the importance to direct our energies to finding balance with nature and finding balance among all human beings. We are all part of one nation, one single nation, la nazione unica, she calls it. We are one human group. Instead of fighting each other, we should become aware of our powers and should start searching for our human potential that still lays in the future. So let's come back to what Dr. Montessori means with her cosmic plan. Here we go. She envisions every cosmic agent, including human beings and non-living cosmic agents, to play a role in this grand ecosystem. Each agent has a task to fulfill, what it needs to do to reach that goal in the future. Each agent does its work, but at the same time, it's dependent on the work of others. She writes, Dr. Montessori writes, "It takes a loftier vision to understand and appreciate how all creatures and all things evolve into infinite varieties of patterns, with a magnificent impulse to subordinate themselves to the central plan of the universe." The idea of a cosmic plan is not something we try to impose on the children. In fact, we don't directly talk about it in such a way. It becomes clear by the many discoveries they make, by the stories we tell, by the guided pathways that we show. It becomes clear by everything they discover for themselves, by inspiring the children and giving them keys for explorations. We know that they will come to their own realizations. Because there is so much to know, incredible amount of knowledge, we like to divide our knowledge into different subject areas. It's just easier for us to reach if we talk about mineralogy, and as that is part of geography, and how we can understand and organize our thoughts. But grouping our knowledge into different subject areas and subject areas makes it harder to make the connections, to see things in an interrelated way. which is how we would like the children to discover our world. Not to think, oh, now I'm working on geography, but as you are discovering, there is a part of geography and a part of history and a part of biology all integrated. So to give an example of how that works in an elementary environment, if you were to study the Earth's movements and the Earth's seasons, then you need some understanding of that the Earth is tilted at an angle. For that, you need to have some knowledge about angles in the first place, and then you already see how geography and geometry are related in this kind of work. But we also need some words to describe what we mean here. Here we go. So we would need words like the axis of the Earth. What is a vertical line? What is a horizontal line? What's the equator? What does equator mean? Actually, equal cutter, so it's an equal cutter line. And these lines relate to each other, and there are angles to be found. Now, the more you know about angles, and the more you know about these words, the more you can understand our world. So this is just one example where language, geography, biology, and geometry are interconnected and have to be presented as such. Oops. If we want to understand something really well, we need the words for it. We need the language. It would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, too fast, to understand anything without language. We need names of things, parts of things, movements of things, relationships of things. Through language, we can discover in all areas. Dr. Montessori stresses the importance of language, and especially written language, when she wrote the cosmic fable to open up written language, to see this as such an enormous gift, a gift that was not given by one person, but is a collaborative work of many human beings. So it's like a gift from humanity to the next generations. This cosmic fable illustrates our interrelatedness. But then there's also mathematics as part of what we need to know, because we have these incredible words for numbers. Words or numbers to express weight, express distance, express anything in time or in speed or in quantity. We want to be precise, so this relates to our human tendency to be exact, to be precise, to improve and perfect ourselves. These numbers help us in numerous ways to understand the universe. Numbers relate to us. Now I have something short to illustrate this. I don't know how to start it. Can you start it for me? No, back. Does it not play? Okay, well, this illustrates the Fibonacci sequence in numbers, which this pattern is to be found in seashells and in cones of trees and in sunflowers. And once you understand these patterns in numbers, then you can see numbers in nature everywhere. We can try to show it, but if not, it's fine too. Then I'll just move on. These patterns in nature show, yes, let's see if we can do it. It's so beautiful. Isn't this marvelous? Perfect. So these patterns to be found give a sense of organization, a sense of security, starting to understand how the world functions and how humanity functions. Children have now this capability of taking this in. It is a time for personal heroes, and nowadays very often there are musicians or sport people that our children find heroes in. But Dr. Montessori writes the following quote: "Let us in education ever call the attention of children to the hosts of men and women who are hidden from the light of fame, so kindling a love of humanity, not the vague and anemic sentiment preached today as brotherhood, nor the political sentiment that working classes should be redeemed and uplifted. What is first wanted is no patronizing charity for humanity, but a reverent consciousness of its dignity and worth." Dr. Montessori's approach to education is clearly different from traditional education because it places the child's natural human development at the center instead of the curriculum. The child has an incredible force to develop himself and to create the human being of the future. Nature helps the child by guiding these energies, let's say, and the more we understand these powers, the more we can support them in their natural human development. Dr. Montessori writes, "Education should be a science and a help to life, a definite and exact study which, following the previously discovered laws of life, will become something exact and discernible. Education depends on a belief in the power of the child and on a certainty that the child has within himself the capacity to develop into a being that is far superior to us." She indicates the importance of creating an environment which fits and answers the psychological needs of the second plane child. This is the perfect time to present the child with the universe, the cosmos, the grandest whole we can offer, and if presented in the right way, will spark in the child interest and a conquest for new discoveries. We want to set up an environment in which the child is free to follow his own interest and where there is work for the hands as well as for the mind, where we tell stories to inspire them, where we help them to use their imagination to understand the world and to use their abstractions to understand how it functions. The classroom itself is not enough. It is too limited. The child needs to go out and discover for himself. Oh, that's one slide so far. Just a conclusion. So, cosmic education is the answer to the psychological needs of the second plane child. It offers the child the possibility to discover how the cosmic agents are part of a cosmic vision, a cosmic plan, and how everything contributes to a greater whole. When we arouse this deep interest in the children, and learning, and a sense of belonging, a sense of wanting to be here, being part of something greater, and feeling admiration and appreciation for the world that we live in, for nature, then we can speak about cosmic education. Thank you.
So I don't know if we have time. I'm looking at AMI staff. Do we have time for some questions? AMI, answer me.
We started late.
1, 2 questions? All right. Does anyone have a question for Bo? Or a comment?
Did you all fall asleep? After lunch.
All right. Can I just take this mic and go there, or do you have one? All right.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this very inspiring speech. I just wanted to comment on the mathematical patterns and the spirals. I see that in many presentations, spirals were present today, and I think maybe it will continue through tomorrow. We will see. Yeah, but I just wanted to highlight that spiral is universally accepted as a sign of the circle of life, the traces of the life of the world, and the heritage that builds on its own history. So I just wanted to express this thought and thought that it's relevant, and yeah, I guess this is what we do here. We build on the heritage of Maria Montessori and bring new vision to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Someone else? No? All right. You can also. Oh, yes, we have one there. Simone.
I'm just curious about your thoughts on whether we should be proud of the fact that we're supranature.
Oh, what a question. Okay, yeah, should we be proud? I think more than proud, we should become conscious, and so that we can be proud in the future. And I think wanting to belong to humanity, and also then seeing all the great things we have done in history, and facing the effects that we've had on nature, are part of what our human realization, let's say. So to become proud in the future, we have to build this feeling of wanting to be part of it, also within the children that are in the next generation. If we make them feel like it's not a good thing to be a human being because we have a negative effect on the environment, then why should they care? So I think being a little proud of the achievements that we did have in the past is part of our future.